she's going right up here in the description, and then I can see it. I scroll down here. But before I do it, so I don't know. Mine's been just my setup.
We good, Robert? We good? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our board meeting tonight. We appreciate all of you being here. We will begin tonight. We have our reverence by Board Member Karen Cronin, our flag salute and pledge of allegiance by Board Member Brian Smith, and our recognitions by Board Member Julie Taylor. We will go to that point.
Our Father in heaven, we come before Thee as we start this board meeting for the Box Elder School District, and we express our gratitude unto Thee for the opportunity that we have to discuss and work to improve the education within our district and to make good decisions that will benefit our students and teachers and our community at large. We are thankful for the community members who support us and through their diligence, and we ask a blessing upon each of our students and faculty and community members, that Thy blessings will be upon them. And we again invite Thy Spirit to be with us as we make decisions and discuss today, that we will do those things that will be for the best of our students. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Stand and repeat the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we have two recognitions tonight, and I don't know if they're here, but is Mary Ewing here? Thank you for being here. And Amy Iett, I didn't know how to pronounce your name, so I'm glad you told me. Amy Iett. So I'm just going to read these letters, but we just are so grateful for you and the good work that you're doing in various capacities. But and if I cry, I apologize, because I don't know why. I'm just like so proud of people today. So this is for Mary. We want to thank you for your preparation, quick thinking, and fast action while working at Lakeview Elementary. Here's what Principal Jeff Morris wrote. During lunch, a student started choking on their food. Mary saw the situation, jumped right in, and performed the Heimlich. People that witnessed it said that she was amazing and saved that student's life. We are so proud of her and her quick reactions and level head to do what needs to be done in a very scary and tense situation. So we just want to thank you for your contributions to our district, and especially in an emergency situation, and being prepared and willing to act, and just being there for the kids and really caring. So we just really are grateful for you. And then Amy Iett, we are excited to congratulate you on being selected as the USBE Teacher of the Year nominee for Box Elder School District, which is a fantastic honor. How many teachers do we have here? Like, you're the, what?
600 plus.
600 plus teachers, and you are our nominee. You're the one we were sending to state to take it all home to win. So, but we just want to thank you for being an outstanding, passionate, and dedicated educator. We know the students at McKinley Elementary, as well as your coworkers, value and benefit from your efforts to connect with and nurture each child. We recognize your efforts and contributions to our district with your talents and skills. It is not easy to remain enthusiastic and committed to creating a classroom environment that encourages and helps all students learn at a high level, and we know that you most definitely put in the work to do that. We're excited for you to represent our district and hope you win the whole thing. We think you're the winner, regardless. We know you represent our district well, and most importantly, you care about your students and our students here in the district. So thank you for being such a great part of our learning and teaching community, and see your families here. They should be proud of you. We're very, very grateful for you and excited for you.
Mr. President, could I just mention something? We, today, David Blake and I did a podcast with Amy, and it was delightful, and it's funny how small the world becomes, because she grew up in Price, Utah, and her father was a chemistry teacher, and when I was there, I got to know her father's Roger Swayze, right? about St. Patrick. And as soon as I said Roger, I thought, is that right? Anyway, that was just fun to get to talk to her about some things, and I got to know her dad while I was down there, so it was really, really cool. And I think what you did, talk about heroic, and to have the courage to do that, to help save that young person's life is just unbelievable. So thank you. I mean, so many people would just go. I know I'd go. I've practiced the Heimlich. I mean, but to actually step in and know that you needed to do it is pretty spectacular. So thank you so much. And I would like to say that we just, for the public to hear, we just heard from 3 of our principals: Lewis Whitaker from Box Elder Middle, Jamie Kent from Box Elder High School, and Vanessa Crane from Garland Elementary. And they just present, we have a work session before every meeting, and they presented on what they're doing in their schools to help promote student connection and employee appreciation. And it was an hour that was well filled to see the great things that are happening in our school district. So thank you for all that you do out there. So thank you.
Mary and Amy, thank you both for coming and doing the awesome things you've done. We as a board would really like to shake your hands, so if you would come up, and with your families too, we would like to shake your hands. If you want to stay to board meeting after that, you're more than welcome, but you do not have to, okay? But we'd love to have you come up and shake your hands.
Start right there. Yeah, start right there. That'd be great.
She's mine too, actually.
Congratulations, Amy. That's wonderful. Congratulations. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming, guys. Thank you.
Hey, good job. Awesome mall. Way to go.
Oh, very well.
We already talked about doing it. About doing it in the next PD.
Sharing your mom.
Yeah. Why you might be drinking.
Thank you so much, Mary. Thank you. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Okay, now we need a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Okay, Karen? Okay, Karen Cronin made the motion to approve tonight's agenda. Do we have a second? Okay, Brian Smith made the second. All in favor say yes? Yes. Any opposed? Okay, we do have, okay. We have an agenda, and we don't have any public comment tonight, so we're going to go to our action items. Is there anyone here that needed to make public comment that did not sign? We're all good? Okay, okay. Thank you. Okay, our action items, our first one is approval of Johnson Controls contract, and Dave Roberts.
Yeah, so last work session, we had Scott Reese come and explain to us the amount of time and effort that we has put in to try to decide if this was something that we felt was worthwhile for Box Elder School District. And so my recommendation is that we accept the project development agreement with the JCI in preparation for improving our facility measures, and so that we can create the efficiencies that I feel will have a direct impact on our student learning and provide a better environment for our students to learn in the best possible way. So that being said, remember that in the conversations that this performance audit, along with our facilities management plan, will be a no cost to the district, because the guarantee is that the amount that we receive in savings will be greater than or equal to what our facilities capital payment will be in order to do the upgrades in our buildings. So no cost, just maybe a deferral of costs that would normally have been to pay for utilities would now be deferred to this capital expense. But even if we don't receive or the same efficiencies and cost savings, it's guaranteed that we will. That difference will be made up by JCI in that process. So I think they'll do a very thorough job in their audit to make sure that they find enough efficiencies to cover the facility increases that we need in order to maintain that contract. So, any questions?
I was just going to ask if you could remind us, when you were here at our work meeting, you had some projected numbers. What was your projection on savings?
Savings, let me turn to it here real quick to make sure I give you the correct numbers.
If I remember right, it was between 4.2 to 7 million.
There you go. Yeah, that'll be the project cost, and the savings should be 7 million.
To 9 million.
And as you said, Dave, that it should be cost neutral to our budget,
Correct.
right? All right, thank you.
You know, the other thing I just want to mention too, you know, Lewis mentioned when he did his presentation how just the change in the LED lighting made a huge impact for the students, and we want to have that same impact for our students in every building, as well as, like I said, make them comfortable, try to control the temperatures better and all those things, as well as the fact that we do have obsolete software in controlling our HVAC systems and our controls. So it's going to put us where we need to be able to just maintain, you know, the right controls in our buildings in order for the students to be comfortable.
Go ahead, Brad.
You go ahead.
I'm trying to remember how many years was the 4 to 7 million cost savings?
20.
Over 20, so is it the contract to pay back over those 20 years?
It
Or
is.
does it pay back sooner?
Well, the contract would be 20, but that's not our intent to extend it out that long. It would be to try to get that paid off sooner.
Okay.
I was just going to comment, in where I work, there are a lot of facilities, and when you don't maintain them and keep them efficient, it really drags on production. And so it's really important with the amount of facilities and trying to maintain the amount of dollars that we've invested in our facilities. This is what we need to be doing to maintain them, to ensure that they're running optimally. So definitely worth the effort.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, do we have a motion?
That we accept a project development agreement with Johnson Controls to fix up the district. And
Okay, Nancy Kennedy has made the motion. Do we have a second? Connie Archibald, a second. All in favor, say yes. Yes. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Congratulations, gentlemen, and thank you for being here. Appreciate that. We're excited to be working with you. Be a great thing. Okay, our next action item is approval of school positive behavior plans. And Keith, I believe you're going to do that.
Yeah,
is that
Megan
correct?
is not able to be here. She's at a conference. This actually started 2 years ago. The state requires that each school have a PBS plan. And it became more formalized, I guess is what I'm saying. Many schools had parts of this, but now it became more formalized. And it requires board approval of the plans. Sometime, is it June or May? May or June? June. There'll be a kind of a recap of how the year went, where they had great progress, maybe where it stalled a little bit, maybe there were some hurdles. So anyway, as part of a requirement from USBE, and then each of the principals and their staff have put together their plan, which I think you've had an opportunity to read. We would ask for your approval in approving these 2023-24 PBS plans for each of the various schools.
Just a comment, we need to update our assignments because we have Mountain View and Foothill. It wasn't too, on our assignment sheet, wasn't too big of a stretch to, although I don't, did you review?
I had not, I reviewed the ones by.
Oh, Mike, so did I. So we just need to update that, but other than that, things look good.
A board
Mars,
assignment?
yeah, it's a board
Marcia sent out our
assignment.
assignments, so she needs to update that
Okay.
list.
I can make sure.
The spreadsheet was right. It was old like on the spreadsheet.
Yeah, just the assignments.
Yeah, just.
I have just a question. On some of the ones I reviewed, they didn't have like clear down at the bottom, what's it called? The team members or things like that. Is that just going to be updated throughout the year? And okay.
Yep.
I just didn't know if that had to be in place or if it's just more the content,
It's more of the content, and then
Okay.
they'll use a variety.
whoever
of
they
groups
need.
and-
Okay.
Yeah, as they go along with.
All
it,
right,
so.
thanks.
Okay, any other questions?
Just, if you haven't read, I've just gone brain dead. If you haven't read Jerry Jackman's, it is hilarious. I mean, it is so detailed and so complex, and when he gets Sunrise, that's the word I'm looking for, and when he gets to the bottom, he lists all these potentials, and maybe we shouldn't say this on the air, but for substance abuse and problems, it's bringing the dogs, and it's like, okay, this guy has a plan. There's like 10 other things he has listed before that, but it's like, Jerry's got a program going.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, we just need a motion then.
I will make a motion that we approve this evening the school prevention plans or the positive performance plans as written.
I'll second.
Okay, Connie Archibald has made the motion, and Karen Cronin the second. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Now we'll go to number 3, approval of the 2023-24 LEA-specific licenses and LEA-specific endorsements, and that is Mark Taylor, our Executive Director of Human Resources and Title IX.
All right, so, due to a lack of educators graduating from college with the teaching degrees and their required endorsements, the state has a program, and we follow that program to hire the right individuals for the positions and then assist them to earn the required endorsements and licenses. You're here in our district. Also, there's instances where a teacher earns the degree, and they're wanting, and they're waiting for the university to actually grant them their, to report their degree on their license with the state. So in these instances, we request that they be approved through an LEA-specific endorsement, or a license or endorsement. And so this year, we have 43 educators earning new endorsements, and we have 25 educators working on professional teaching licenses. And this is in compliance with our policy 3022, where we work with them to earn their licenses and endorsements as needed. And so it's recommended that the board approve the 23-24 LEA-specific endorsements and licenses for this school year. Are there any questions about that?
Just a question. It would, some of these people, some of the people we saw last year probably finished their program. Be nice to see, some of those names too, so we can see how they're progressing.
For sure.
So,
I can definitely include that going forward.
right, with that, I'll make a motion that we approve the 23-24 LEA-specific licenses and the LEA-specific endorsements.
Okay, Karen Cronin has made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Tiffany Summers has made the second. All in favor say yes. Yes. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Mark.
I might just add, maybe it's written there, but it is good for 3 years. So this is a 3-year commitment approved annually with whoever needs that opportunity. So thanks, Mark.
And it's only specific to our district, right? They can't go to another district on this provisional from,
Right, so if they moved from us to another, like, it would be dependent upon that LEA to see where they're at in their progress. They would still get it done 3 years
okay,
with that LEA.
thank you.
interesting. Okay. Okay, now we'll go on to our information items. First of all, our busing protocol for courtesy riders. Dave Roberts, our business administrator, and I don't, Jason's not here, but we are.
Can we
Let's
do that?
Let's keep it that way.
Do you want to wait for a little bit for Jason, or you get?
We could wait.
We can wait.
We
yeah.
can wait. We
Put it
can
at
just
the-
come
put
back
the
to
end.
you. Sure, we can do that. So Mark, you ready to do your another one? And then you can go home early. So Mark's going to do our October 1st enrollment report.
All right, so, October 1 count. We went over this in the work session, but to bring that here in our board meeting, some takeaways as, thank you for pulling that up. First major takeaway is that we are down 53 students from where we were at in 2022. So from 2022 to 2023, as a district, we are minus 53 students. We were projecting to be up 50, so we are essentially down 100 from where we thought we would be. Along with that, 141, we're down 141 students in the south end of the district. So that's Century Elementary South, while we're up 86 students on the north end of the district on the October 1 count. District-wide, as we look at elementary versus secondary, in elementary, we're down 65 students from where we were at last year, up 13 in secondary. Also, something else to note is that the kindergarten is smaller this year than it has been in the past, as far as like 15 years. So, that's 822 students. As compared to 2022, where there was 831. Interesting to note that first grade in 2023, so it would have been last year's kindergarten, right, is 848, which is up 17 students. So how all-day kindergarten has impacted our numbers, we may see, it'd be interesting to see what happens next year for our first grade. Is there another increase again, because parents didn't want their kids to be a part of all-day kindergarten? That kind of thing time will tell what that impact is in our district. But those are the major takeaways from our county.
So can I ask a question? Do you have a trend, like over the last 5 years, or has that number gone down consecutive the last 5 years, what's the trend?
So, you can speak to this, Mark, but I'll just show it out.
It's easier to show it if we have it there, but if you look at 2023, our total student population,
Right,
right now, we are at 12,285, which is 53 lower than last year, right? The 12,338. So if
Right.
you go to 2021, 12,294. So that, and then you go back another year, 11,840 would have been COVID, affected by COVID. So last year was a high, and now we're down a little bit this year. So, going back 5 years, we increased, and now we kind of settled a little bit. And depending on what happens with our kindergarten numbers again next year, we have the bubble that went through that we're seeing on the south end as well as in different areas in the north end. And we're seeing that come to fruition, what was reported would happen in our district, so.
Well, I think one of the things that's, as you look at the high school, is they're all, what is there, 1,000 in each from the 9th grade up? Each one of them's 1,000 except for 12th grade.
I know what you're looking at.
And
Column N and M.
Yeah, if you look at the, yeah.
so the concern I have is, we've talked about the amount of growth in Box Elder County in housings, but we're not seeing it in kids. And if we have another one of these 800 kindergarten classes as 1,000 leave. Just looking at just the numbers on hand right now, we're down close to 200 students. And if it keeps happening, there's the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade are all in that 1,000 range, and if that continues, it's going to be 150 to 1,000. I've handed out a sheet of paper that I gave you 6 or 7 years ago, and it's from the Chem C. Gardner Institute at the University of Utah, and Dr. Pam Perlich did a massive demographics report back in 2015, 2016, and I'm astounded, and it has it for the whole state on one side, but on the other side, it's got Box Elder, Cache, and Rich, and they're partly done through the Bear River AOG, Association of Governments. And as you look at this report, the left side, for those out there, it talks about the total number of students in Box Elder. And it goes year by year, and it started in 2015 with 12,900, and it gets down to like 2021, 2022, 13,694 of school-aged population. So you see 12,200 or 12,300 up there. We've got to remember that right now, there's about 500 at Promontory, and there's about 500 that we have on our list for homeschool. So right there is 1,000 kids that are on the books. Now, right now, it's not against the law not to be homeschooled or not to go to Promontory or not to go to public school. So there are a certain number of kids in our county that are school-aged that I think that if you look at 2023, Pam Perlich pretty much hit the nail on the head 6 or 7 years ago that we are down. Her projections were down 24. Next year, she's got us down 77. The year after, down 112. The year after that, down 98. 86 the next year, 61 and 28 down, and 2029 down. And then in 2030, there starts to be some slow growth. And I tried to get a hold of, we had fall break right after our work session the other night, and I've tried to get a hold of her, and it's pretty hard to even figure out what the phone number is. I've talked to a couple of people, haven't got there yet. But Karen had asked, and I want to find out how she stands behind her projections currently. Because as we all know, the pandemic changed the dynamic of work, and people could move to a place like Tremont or Fielding and still work online and move up here where, it changed things. And so, but right now, her projections have been pretty darn spot on for Box Elder School District. And so it's a concern as we look at building budgets, because we get money, 4,000 and 4,200, Dave, is that about the WPU, for each student? And so if you talk 100 kids, we thought we were going to have 50 more than we had. We had 50 less, so we missed a projection of about $400,000 to $500,000 in our budget this year, which hurts. And so if next year, if that does happen, 1,000 drop off from the 12th grade, and we only have 800, we're going to have to, start hiring fewer teachers. Luckily, we hire a lot of teachers each year. I don't see a reduction in force happening, but it might be in some locations in some areas. We've had to hire extra teachers in the high schools because of all these students. As it starts hitting, we've got to look really hard at that. So reduction in student population is really a hard thing to deal with, and it blows everybody's mind with all of the housing and all of the number of apartments, townhomes, single-family dwellings that this is happening, but it is.
Hey, Sue, just so you know, the projection from the State Board of Education, they actually had us up like at 222 students for this year. And in talking to Keith last year, we just didn't feel comfortable with that number. And so that's the projection we did was 50. So just know that we are a little bit more on line with what we feel like is happening here in Box Elder School District. But also, too, just wanted to share with you, Cache and Iron are the two school districts that are doing bonds that we've kind of been watching to see how that plays out. Both the predictions for Cache specifically, she said they were going to grow 32 students in 2022. They actually grew 721. And was only going to grow 27 students in 23, and they grew 177. So it's kind of, she did really well with our school district. but she's kind of underestimated maybe some of the growth in other areas of the state, but she nailed it for us.
Have we asked the county how many new homes in the county there are? So we could compare new homes with enrollment?
We have only, looked at I hate to say it, the newspaper, and if you saw this week's newspaper, Perry has like, I want to say Perry Willard has like 400. We're talking apartments, single-family dwellings that are in the books to start being worked on. Yeah. Yeah. I think Tremont's down.
Well, Tremont has 17 single-dwelling homes and 18 multi-level homes that are multifamily, I guess I should say. So compared to what happened a year ago in Tremont, yes, we are back to what we have always been, but Tremont is doing well, and there's a lot projected. Many developers are in the process of their applications, but yes, we are not exploding according to building permits.
So I don't know if you could get that information for us so that we can see how many countywide. So it's just interesting that we're having that explosion of building.
Yeah, I know.
And yet not the students. Just trying to understand that as we.
Well, is there more online? We don't know when they go online, unless they leave us and the transcript is, requested, we don't know where they go. And there could be more kids online. There's certainly some that are being private school educated. So there's a variety of things. So it's just really a hard number because by the houses, we'd be, and the apartments, we'd be.
From what I understand, the governor has said that in a household, it used to be 2.8 children per household, but now it's 0.8. Is that correct? So it's 0.8 now. So that probably spells it out.
So we're
right
not
there.
at replacement factors.
We need growth to help keep level numbers.
So Superintendent, I have a question. And the state probably won't give it to us, but is there any way, as we talk about kids who are homeschooled and all, is there any way we can find out which of our kids are getting the $8,000 grant?
I don't know that. I would like to think that it's public money, so they,
I would hope that we could see and track. Just kind of curious, how many apply and how many get it, and demographically, how far it spreads throughout the state? Because I think there's going to be a real concentration in certain areas, and I'm not sure our more rural areas
aren't some of those.
But I would really like to see where that goes.
It's rolled out.
Yeah.
It's in, those reports should be.
Yeah.
I'd like to see how our numbers.
Sure.
stack up and
Yeah. Find out. I definitely need to look at that.
Okay, good questions. Any more questions for Mark? Okay, thank you,
Thank
Mark.
you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good night. Okay, now, Jason, welcome. Thank you. You're perfect. We'll get you and Dave here, and we will do it's the busing protocol for courtesy riders. Okay?
All right. So I sent you guys some samples and policies from other school districts and just wanted to review those with you, just to kind of give you an idea what other school districts are doing. You guys asked for some practices from other school districts. So Cash and Logan, they don't have one. I did talk to their assistant director up there, and he said it is getting bad, especially in the Nibley and Hyde Park area because of so much growth. So they are considering creating a policy for that. Weaver School District has a very small line in their policy regarding that. The other one that I had a pretty lengthy conversation with was Alpine. And I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but Alpine has open busing. Any kid can go to a bus stop and get on a bus. Any kid. Now, that being said, they hate it. They are having so many issues with discipline. They're having so many issues with parents complaining about so-and-so's on the bus bothering my kid, and that kid may be eligible and the other kid isn't. And so they're having a lot of disciplinary issues. And I think Jason spoke to the the biggest benefit that they received this year in regards to tiering our bus routes was that there was less student discipline and behavior issues on the bus.
Significantly, we've seen that difference. Drivers are telling me, I'm seeing that just with what we're dealing with. What's also interesting, when we did this, we're having more students ride the bus who are eligible than used to ride. So they're seeing that that's not overcrowded, so now they're coming to the bus. And so we've actually had some routes we've had to readjust again because they were too full because suddenly now, and so that we're making those adjustments and those stops. I don't know if we want to talk about what, I reached out to Ron.
Yeah, you can talk.
Reached out to Ron Litchfield, he's the state director for transportation, and said that, we were looking at this, and so he helped direct us to some of the policies, but he also cautioned, was it Jordan?
Yes.
Yeah, Jordan School District had a sad situation, but they had a student who was ineligible for the bus. They went ahead and they have the policies so a student can apply. This particular student applied and was granted to ride the bus. However, he had to walk because you can't create a new stop. You have to use existing stops. And unfortunately, in his route to that stop, he was killed, hit and killed. And with that opened the liability, and the district actually lost because they was deemed they shouldn't have had him crossing that road, even though it's not a safe route. So when we follow what the state states, Ron's concern is when we're following the state rule, that gives us that liability coverage. The minute we cross that boundary that the state has set, we're now creating a potential liability, and it was for Jordan. And so a lot of the districts are stepping back away from that and are really wanting to pull that back. So that's a cautionary he just had, not telling us not to because other districts are doing this. But he also said there is a caution that we need to be very aware of and maybe think through.
Yeah, because if a student is ineligible and getting on the bus, they're not covered, right? Because they're doing something they're not supposed to. But if you've given an ineligible student permission to ride the bus, and that does happen, there could be the possibilities and liability there. All right, so Canyons, they have it. Davis had the longest policy there, so I put that in there. And then Park City has a very small one like Weber and Canyons. And I've included some links for some applications there for you. And Washington County also has.
Alpine doesn't.
Yeah, they just let everybody get on the bus. Anyway, as we went through, Jason and I sat down and we thought, okay, if this is something that you guys want to consider as a board, here's some things you guys ought to consider. First of all, if you look at most of those policies, no student outside of that school boundary can ride a bus. So if they have what they call an open enrollment, is that what it's called? Yeah. Where a student from a different school can apply to attend another school outside of their boundary, those students are not allowed to ride a bus.
They wouldn't be allowed into that consideration.
Shouldn't, for space availability.
The board approves that open or closed school every year.
Correct.
That's what we're talking.
And we also felt like if we do this, we probably shouldn't start till after October 1st, even though there are school districts that start, 2 weeks after school, because we have to do a head count on our buses and report that to the State Board of Education. And how do we make an accurate count of eligible students riding our bus if we've already approved ineligible students to ride?
And we're really just getting to that now. It's October 15th, and we're really feeling like we're at that
point where they can make those considerations.
We could make those decisions. And so I would hesitate to say anything before then.
And so some of the determinations, and these are all spread out, different school districts make those determinations in different ways. First come, first serve is what we talked about. Farthest out we talked about. Younger grade, the age of students. A first grader probably doesn't have the same capacity and reasoning as a fifth grader. So would we want to consider younger students over older students? Students of employees. There's employees that have to be to work by a certain time in order to teach, and they may have a young student at home that, if they could get on a bus, it'd be a lot better for our employees. Health issues considerations, asthma, maybe, some issue with ability. but a lot of those can be covered by 504, but some are not covered by 504. So we thought that might be a
And a
consideration.
504 opens the door for a student to have transportation services based on that
504
504 or an
accommodation.
IEP, both of those.
And then students in the household, so, if you had 2 or 3 students in the same household, maybe they would be considered because there's multiple people in that same household that could ride the bus. And then also felt like school administration, if they had a student that, that was somehow be able to ride the bus, that would improve their attendance, I think that ought to be something we consider, because if there's a way, a tool that we can give a student to get them there to school, we want them to be there. And so if that's a way we can do that, as well as, when I say preference, it's just, we don't know every situation in every student's home. We don't know the complications, the hurdles that they're overcoming, so we felt like having the administration participate in making those decisions would be very good.
Yeah, and it just comes down to, there's a line, then if we cross the line, how do we cross that line? And who gets that preference? And I think we need to be very thoughtful as we go through that process.
So as you talked about that line and opening up for liability, is there any way to mitigate that liability?
Well, when we looked at Jordan's rules, that actually states that the parent is responsible to get them to that stop. But according to Ron, they lost on that. So I don't know if that's something we need to have our attorneys look at before we proceed, so that we can have that protection.
And the application that they fill out, can we put a legal
And
statement?
they had that. And so
They had
that
it in
was
their
the problem.
application too?
Yeah, they had that, and still, that they
Still
deemed that,
didn't.
you know what, he shouldn't have been allowed to cross the road, basically, is what they're saying, and so.
Well, there was a case in San Juan School District 15 or 20 years ago. And they signed waivers to go ride on a trail ride. Kid fell off, broke his neck, and the waivers meant nothing.
They weren't legitimate.
You can't
You
waive a
can't
waiver.
have a student, waive something when they're on a school activity.
Yeah, and a parent can't waive it, yeah.
Yeah, the law came back that a parent cannot waive the child's, child's opportunity.
So I just, I'm not saying no, I just think we need to, as Ron cautioned us, we need to be very aware and maybe.
We need to have a conversation with risk management and also, our own attorney, and just make sure that this is,
We can
do
cover, what
this
was the
without putting
payout?
students in harm.
What was that?
What did the district, what was the payout?
They were liable, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, we don't.
I don't know, I mean, a lot of times that's never disclosed, I just know they were found liable, and so.
So just continue on with the other considerations, just making sure that the space available students know that this is a temporary, and it's a privilege to ride that bus, and it can be revoked at any time.
And we may have all of a sudden more kids who are eligible want to ride the bus, and so we may have to take students off, so that's going to be a hard part too.
And we felt like just letting parents know that, hey, your student has to behave on this bus, and we don't have to go through the process because they're not eligible of a 1, 2, 3. One time, they're done, they're off. Also too, certain considerations for that buffer in case any additional students move in that area, that would be eligible to ride the bus. And only good for the current year, they'd have to reapply every year. Just because you got it in 7th grade doesn't mean you'll get it in 8th grade, kind of thing. And then they need to go to an existing bus stop.
Which is, we can't create another bus stop, and that's where that problem comes.
And then we also felt that the bus drivers need to know the students that are on the bus, even if they're ineligible. And so the bus drivers would be given a list of those courtesy students. So if they did get in an accident, they would know every student, and so they would be able to report what student,
We'd assign
if
them-
the student got hurt.
We'd assign them as an ineligible student, so we still wouldn't receive funding for them, but they would be listed.
On the roster.
On the roster.
So there's just some ideas, open to whatever considerations, additional considerations you guys have.
Can I ask a question?
Uh-huh.
So I know in my area, the need and what is it like on other routes? Is this a pretty common throughout the district, or is it very specific areas?
It really varies, and in your area, it seems to be one that's really a strong desire versus others. I do take a lot of calls. I do get some frustrated parents, and I get the angst. And I wish I could say the state would come in and say, we're going to fund transportation for everyone. Texas, it doesn't matter. You can live next to the school. You can ride a bus to the state. But where the state has stipulated these rules, it's hard. And where do you draw the line?
Right.
So if we're gonna go past the line, where do we draw that line? And
Right.
that's where it gets difficult.
Yeah, and that's
And
why,
who do
that's
we
why, I would-
choose?
right, and I think that that's why we really need to get a policy, but again, I can see from the parents' point of view, like you see a bus that can handle 50, and there's only 25 kids on the bus, it seems a little bit of like a waste of resources if they could do it, so, I mean, I think we need to get procedures, that's why I'm wondering, is it, like I said, I know my area, but I'm not familiar with others, if that's a common problem.
There are pockets, but it's
Uh-huh.
not district-wide.
Yeah, sure.
And a lot of it depends on, you're gonna be, once you get outside of the range, because our schools are clustered too. So once you get outside of that, everyone gets to ride.
Right,
And so it's really,
yeah.
And Julie, I think just the mere fact that it's a 2-mile radius versus a 1.5, I think that it compounds the issue, right,
Yeah.
for the secondary students.
For the secondary students, and also, I think, just historically, like, just older siblings have always done this, like, for years and years and years, and our neighborhood's a little bit older, like, it's not like these young new there are some new families moving in, but like, some of these people have established patterns of this is, you just walk down to the bus stop, and so I think that's where
and
a lot
us
of the
cleaning that up and making
angst is,
sure that we're
Yeah.
already transporting eligible students, I know that created some angst. And so-
Right.
But it's also helped us become
Yes.
better at what we're doing.
I think the rules are very good, and I think we need to have those rules, but I do see a need to have some kind of a procedure where there could be people apply, and I think, just because I know that it's, like I said, it's probably pockets, and I can see that, because depending on where schools are, but there's, I think that would be a good thing as a district to say we are providing as much as we can within the guidelines that we have set. And we want to make, because if I'm a parent and I see kids, bus half empty and my kid can't ride and I'm a block from the bus stop, but I'm technically ineligible, that doesn't look good. And I think just from a, what do you call that?
Public relations.
Public relations, a perspective, yeah.
And it's interesting
Perception.
too, because we'll have a certain amount register, and then we'll have a certain
Exactly.
amount ride on a consistent basis, but then as the temperatures change.
It could change.
I know it's gonna tick up, and so that's why I'm hesitant too, even October 15th, to say, yeah, we know for sure this is what's on the bus, because as soon as it turns cold.
Right.
After Halloween, we're gonna see an uptick too.
Yeah, I understand, I know there's lots of concerns,
Yeah.
but,
I was wondering if we should, bring this as a discussion item in a couple of months, and in the meantime, talk to risk management attorneys, and then even the policy committee, and kind of have them devise something, then bring it to the board so we can discuss it, and then make a final decision. How do you feel about that? Right, me too. So just make sure.
Would you guys also like us to draft a policy?
Might be good to draft a rough draft.
A rough draft.
Yeah, yeah.
To
Yeah.
Heidi Alder, our attorney.
Okay.
That's why I thought the policy committee could be a part of this as well.
So my question would be, what consideration do you want to use as the weight to determine if there's only 10 spots on the bus, but there's 25 kids to
Is
apply?
it farthest? Is it?
What are the weights you
First
want
come,
us to
first
take into
served?
consideration?
Yeah.
I would want to know your recommendation, Jason, on that. You're the pro in this area.
So, you can say, okay, it's the furthest, but maybe the furthest is gonna be the ones that, could maybe have more resources to get there. I don't know. I mean, it's, and age, and so, that's the problem. As soon as you start to cross the line, in particular, in your neighborhood, we look, and there are 75 middle school students who could be interested, I'm guessing. And there's no way I can take that 75. So I could maybe
15
take
seats.
15, and so it's like, how do we pick the winners and losers? I mean, I don't know.
is there, when you say farthest out, is that,
Yeah, so it'd be the person 1.95 versus the student that's 1.75.
oh, okay, I was thinking, okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
so you just.
So the closest, the furthest out, that's,
Furthest away from the
School,
school who weren't
okay.
eligible, so you're
Yeah.
1.97,
right, gotcha.
They're really the closest to the bus stop.
Correct.
Right.
They'd be the ones that probably see the kids getting on and off.
Yes.
Yeah, and so they would be the closest to the bus stop. So, in my mind, that's probably what I would think, but I also would want to look at need. I don't know how you do that, or
I think, my perspective is, I think the principal, if they've got a student that they know that they can help out by being on the bus, so that they're there learning, I think that'd be my consideration, first consideration, and then after that, farthest out, first on.
I would make a comment here that I remember when we were making the boundary changes in regards to Garland and going to Fielding, how we considered a particular neighborhood that the children weren't able to get to school or didn't come to school. And so those children were now being picked up close and taken to Fielding. And I don't know, I would hope that that has a bright story to that, in that maybe those children are doing better than ever, because even though they live relatively close to Garland, but picking them up at their homes and taking them to Fielding has worked out really well. That was the strategic, that was the plan.
Right. I remember.
And I understand the need for that, like, but how do you determine who needs it? Like, that's, to me, I'm like, mileage is pretty cut and dry, and
then
like.
my next question too is, how do we advertise this?
Yeah.
Once we set this,
Yep.
do we just put it in the registration, or do we,
Put it out on the webpage
Well,
and everybody
and-
applies that was interested? Yeah,
And,
that's.
and you know, it may be after you look at everything, you may find out that this is a can of worms and what we have is all right.
Yeah.
And you can justify that, saying, well, we have done this and this and this, but what we have is really pretty good.
Well, and again, going back to what Ron said, he said, state's created a line for you. If you cross that line, we're not there.
Exactly.
And so he
Yep.
really cautioned, and he said, he was the director at Morgan, and Morgan did do this, and then he pulled it back. And so
Well, I think you'll have to look at all the pros
Yeah.
and cons and then just decide if this is right or not, if it's
And
right.
my fear is too, is there's gonna be some kids who don't get to the public, I don't know. I mean, it's like.
I just had a thought, I mean, if there were a variety of categories that you could, considerations. You know, maybe I'm not 1.97, but I do have some health issues, and I am younger. So you could kind of say, how many of these boxes?
Check every box, and that means.
And maybe they become the one. Now, again, that becomes a little more subjective, which is going to frustrate people, but if we're really trying to do what's best for kids, if we knew what those categories are, that might be.
And I'll be honest, I have the same age. I talk to these parents and I say, I so wish I could just say yes to you. It would just be easier for me, because I don't like saying no. And I want your kid to be successful.
Sure.
I value your kids being to school.
Sure.
And so but I also knew I wanted to follow policy, and I wanted to make sure we're within line. So.
I say that we talk to our legislators and say, change that boundary.
Well, that's already been presented a couple times.
Well, just because in reality, 2 miles to walk, even for a middle school kid, where we live and have to cross which streets we have, there really isn't a safe way to get there if you went by whatever. But if we deem it a hazardous route, then we pick it up as a school district.
And then we fund the tab. And
Right, so
if we
we've
open
gotta-
the door, I guess I could get enough drivers. I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, how do we manage that? So I appreciate what you're doing and looking at all this information, because I think it's really important we do have a policy for a reason, and we do have rules for a reason, and we want to help as many as we can. And if we can, but we need to do it in a very thoughtful way.
Yeah, and I don't want to open us up to more
Okay.
problems.
Suppose we do this, suppose we work on this, and if you get everything done, we bring it back in November. If we can't quite get everything done, bring it back in December.
Okay.
Does that sound
Yep.
okay? Is everybody
So
okay?
one other consideration we talked about in our work meeting was the way that they do out-of-boundary students for schools. I don't know. Heidi Jo had mentioned that. So is this similar to what we do for out-of-boundary exceptions for schools? I don't know. You just mentioned maybe we could look at the out-of-boundary for busing as similar.
Like it's closed.
Enrollment, yeah, I think.
So that's similar.
And that's
Then-
once we create that criteria.
Yeah, if there is a criteria and you're looking for administrators to give their approval, that gives them the ability to review that, prioritize those students that follow.
The policy and have a contract in place.
Because they'll better understand the students than I will in a given school.
Which I think that's something you both just said you recommend, is having the administrator input.
So are we okay,
Yep.
gentlemen?
Sounds great.
I have a kind of related question, because
Okay.
we talked about that they have to follow the same rules. Do we have a standard? Does the regular be safe, responsible, respectful go to the buses, or do bus drivers set their own rules?
We have a bus conduct policy that actually outlines specific on the bus, but it's
Okay.
also tied.
Tied to that? Okay.
And one thing, I'll just shout out to what we're doing with my trainers is we're looking at our elementaries. And so now we're going to every elementary school and we're doing like an assembly, but it's a bus assembly. And we are training each class one by one on bus safety, getting on and off a bus. So we're going to do that with every elementary school. Because we felt like we need to have that specific training.
I mean, even if they don't ride the bus to and from, they're probably going to ride a bus to on an activity
Yeah.
run.
That's great.
Field trips, like Lakeview, we don't have any buses to go to Lakeview, but all those students will get on a bus to go to field trip.
Okay.
Okay, so we okay then, gentlemen? Okay, next month or December,
Okay.
November or December? Okay? Okay. Thank you, Paul, thank you. And Dave?
I'll just
I'll
stay
let you
here for
stay
the
right there
finances. How's
financial
that?
report. That's perfect.
It looks really good. The revenues are right about where they should be. A couple areas that we are seeing an increase in revenues is good news. And the expenses all seem to be in line. And again, the ones that are over budget based off the percentage of the budget year that we're already in is because of things that we pay at the beginning of the year, you know, as a whole. So, any questions? I mean, it looks really like we're right on as far as revenue and expenses.
All good? Okay. Okay. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, and thank you, Jason. Thank you. Are there been any board committee reports this past month?
I have one.
Oh, okay, Nancy?
So Bridgerland and Logan and Dave missed getting his facial on the 21st. I hope the rest of you got there. It was a great time. But tonight and tomorrow night, the fashion merchandising department over in Logan that a lot of our students go to is having their big fashion show. It's a big deal. Anyway, it has gotten so big that they have to have it at the Logan Fairgrounds because they've gotten so many people coming and so many kids. So 7 o'clock tomorrow night, if you want to be cool and go over. They've got 3 of the sets. Kids have designed the clothing specifically and sewn and manufactured everything for their specific set. And they tell me the theme this year is red carpet and dress up and look stunning. So I got to find something stunning to wear tomorrow night. But they have a lot of kids that do this, and the stores in Logan have been so good to give them clothing to use for the show, and they do a great job of working with these kids. They took these kids back to New York last summer and really had some tremendous opportunities. I think they've got like 55, 60 kids involved with this fashion show. So it's a big deal.
That's wonderful. All right, thank you, Nancy. Okay, Alyssa Lyman, our student board member, is going to give the student board member report. Thank you, Alyssa.
So starting with Bear River, when I got in contact with Olivia, she's the student body president, right? Okay, just wanted to make sure. Okay, so she was telling me about their homecoming week, how they had like all their powder puff, their dance, their football game and everything, and she said that there was great attendance. Box Elders was really good too. Dallin Davidson's actually, they did the numbers apparently, did not realize this. He said this was the most participation Box Elder has gotten in homecoming week and the actual dance in many years. So that's definitely been way up, which is so fun because I always love homecoming week. For Bear River, they're actually doing a book drive this week for the local elementary schools. So they're just collecting books. We're starting our can drive right now at Box Elder. And that's always fun since they do a competition and all the teachers and every student really gets involved. Multiple clubs in both schools have had different fall leadership conferences. Most of them, a good chunk of us went down to Provo a few weeks ago. We had a really good guest speaker. He was great. Yeah, and then both schools are also preparing for the Veterans Day Assembly, and I know each one has a good program going on with their madrigals, getting ready to sing, and volunteers and everything. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you. Appreciate that. I have to tell you a funny story. Nancy, you sent us those pictures of I think it was you that sent us of the turf, the new turf at Box Elder. I mean, it was a month or so ago. Anyway, well, I'm in this texting group of kids I went to high school with, a wide variety of kids, all different kinds.
Kids?
Well, I still think we're kids, okay? I still think of us as kids. Anyway, big kids. Anyway, I was amazed at the pictures I got back of peach days and everything. Oh, we went down to see the new turf, and they had their pictures taken by it and everything, and I thought, wow, this is really cool. And I didn't even think it would, be that big of a deal, but it was to past classmates, so that's cool.
So the funniest thing with homecoming week, if you did not see the pictures, Box Elder had a soccer mom and a barbecue dad dress-up day. And the pictures were hilarious. The teachers, the kids, there were fanny packs and.
It was the best dress day I think we've ever had.
It was hilarious. Anyway, they lived to.
That is great. Okay, thank you, Alyssa. Thank you. And thank you to Nancy. Okay, let's go to our Safe School Violations Policy 505, and that's Superintendent Carlson.
Today you passed the positive behavior strategies, and Policy 5005 is our Safe Schools policy, and it's basically state code, and it's all of the things that students do that they shouldn't. And as we go through that policy, Keith and Heidi Jo, Catherine Allen, our Executive Director over Special Education, and Megan Bushnell, our Student Services Director, have been working on a rubric to help us better understand how to deal with certain discipline issues. And just an FYI, this 5005 Safe Schools policy, if it's something that is really, really extreme, they actually would end up at the district office. And luckily, in my 6 years and a few months, I'm in my 7th year here, we haven't had to bring a student to the Board of Education. In my previous 16 years, I had the unfortunate circumstances of bringing 2 different kids to the Board of Education for an expulsion hearing. And so ultimately, that is what can happen if a student does something egregious enough that they need to be expelled, and basically they are told they can't come back to the school district they're in. So we've had a lot of issues, and last year, Gary, along with Bonnie Young, Gary Allen, Bonnie Young, really got into the reform type thing, and there was so many small discipline issues that it kind of blew up, and we ended up with a lot more, in the low hundreds of students coming to the district office for safe school violation hearings. And it really took up a lot of Gary's time and a lot of Bonnie's time with things that, as we've evolved, and we felt like they could be handled at the district level. And so at the school level, thank you. And so in order to really be able to refine that, these 4 people I mentioned earlier, if you wanted to click on that safe school violations, and you can see that rubric that they've worked on, and they've got it color-coded, and all of these things are in the Policy 5005. And they, as you go down through, there's keywords, just right off the bat, the A words, alcohol, arson, assault. It tells the principal what you're supposed to do, how you're supposed to handle it, and then the offense and how far it's supposed to go. And then it comes back down to, what needs to go to the district level. And so I just want to let the board know, and even the community that are watching, that we are very in tune with the fact that there's a lot of concern about improper behaviors at our schools, fighting, things that go on in the bathrooms, alcohol and illegal drug use, all those types of things. And we're trying our best to be able to use the proper reforms in order to be able to help students increase their behavior. The very first paragraph of Policy 5005 talks about the purpose of education is to affect students' behavior, and the fact that whole policy, which is, I believe, I've read it 100 times, it's either 14 or 17 pages long, is the first paragraph talks about the fact that we are here to alter students' behaviors to become more well-behaved, not to be punitive and to be punishing. And we all know that positive behavior interventions works better than punitive. And so I really commend these four people in putting together this rubric to be able to know what to do with each one of these different behaviors that can happen. And I just wanted you to know that we're working on this, we're trying to refine it, we're taking behavior incredibly seriously. I know the first week or so of school, we had a really ugly fight between two girls at Bear River Middle School. And unfortunately, in today's world, when they do that, there's about 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 different views of that particular fight. And then the audio, of course, is pretty horrendous. And so we take it very seriously. These folks are doing a great job working on it. Our principals are working hard with both Heidi, Joe, and Keith. You know, it is mostly in the secondaries we see this, but there is some of this that occurs in the elementary. So once again, I publicly want to thank these folks for building this thing and doing a great job. You know, luckily they keep me involved as we go along and let me throw my 2 cents worth in here and there, but they do the work. So thank you, and just know that we're working on it.
Okay, are there any questions to the superintendent?
How is the feedback? So you're, pushing some of these things back to the school administrators. How are they taking it?
Keith, I think you can answer this better, but I think they kind of, and it's one of those things that it was a pendulum thing. And when I first came, there was probably 7 or 8, and then it went probably a little too far, and they felt like they were supposed to bring him here. Now I think there's some that they really want to just take care of themselves and let it build up to, okay, young man, you've done this 3, 4 times, and Keith, how do you see it? Is that?
Yeah, I don't know if this is a good analogy. When a teacher can control their classroom behavior before they send it to the principal, that's a lot more effective. When it goes to the principal immediately, it kind of takes away the positive influence of a teacher, potentially. And again, I'm not talking extreme behaviors, but I found that our principals could do everything that Gary and I were doing. That they can have a conversation, they can come up with a plan, they can listen to parents, they can help kids, they can motivate them. What we are doing is, in these hard situations, they're communicating with Heidi, Joe, and I. We're having good conversations, so it's not just a one-person decision. We're getting different angles. We're asking different directors, what's your angle on this? If we have a certain equity issue that comes up, Megan's certainly going to be a part of that conversation before we even really decide what would be the plan moving forward. How do we do restorative practices? What consequences do we have? So, we're early, but, we're not at 120, but we have had a couple. But the reality is our principals are doing a great job. They have a feel of that student a lot more than maybe the district official. Now, we're not talking about really rough stuff. It's going to come, and the superintendent's going to be involved, and we hope it doesn't ever come to you, but, we're hopeful that doesn't happen. But I think so far, the feeling is they know they can do this, and it's saving more time for everybody involved.
Can I just tack on? I just wanted to also just acknowledge that our community resources that have helped with that. So Megan did a really great job of getting involved with the probation officers, Michelle Carter and Jeremy Thornock, who gave us some feedback on when that needs to be referred to juvenile court and which of those types of things would be really appropriate. And just also commending them too for looking at the approach of we're looking to revise our system to make sure that we're supporting students instead of punishing them and becoming punitive. They're really looking at how they can support students in turning around behavior too. But I just wanted to acknowledge that they've been a big support to us in that work too.
And Mr. President?
Yes.
So I'm curious, with the changes in juvenile justice as the pendulum has come back, has this been a part of that too, where the juvenile justice bill has been refined so that we can actually do something?
Yes. Interestingly enough, just this week, there was a bill this past year that made it so that extreme truancy could not be turned into juvenile justice. And they went, and that was not the intent of the bill rider, and so they're going to bring it back so that there is still a backstop. And so that, this 1 year, it's really, because we were told a year ago, but there was a tweak, and somehow the tweak, it's amazing how many eyes go on a bill, as you well know, that it would get through. And so a lot of this is the juvenile justice reform, and we met with Michelle Carter and Jeremy Thornock, like they said. And they said there's just some things that if you give them to us, we just give them back to you. And so it's just one of those things that, you know, they talk about school reform and how important it is to reform instead of punish. And the Pew report, if anybody wants to go back and read the Pew report, it talks about the school to prison pipeline. And the younger that a student was referred to juvenile court, the higher percentage of chance they had to be in prison in their adult life. And so they felt like to do more for the juveniles, kids 18 and under, to try to reform them instead of punish them would be much better for. And there's, you know, I sit on both sides of that fence, I'm not going to lie, because kids that are doing extreme enough stuff when they're 17, 16, are probably going to do that kind of stuff when they're 18 and 19. And but that's my thinking. I'm not a psychologist, so I do believe that there are some that, you know, and I heard a story on a podcast just a short time ago. A kid ended up, I think he stole something for $20, ended up in a juvie and got into a ruckus inside of the detention center, hurt a kid, and because of that, he ended up at 40 years old, ended up getting out of prison by the time, in and out of prison several times. And so I kind of saw, it was one of those awakening type things. And so it's a hard call exactly where to go, but I do think, you know, reform and trying to correct behavior at the lowest level that you possibly can. And that's what happens with our bullying situation. We always try to alter behavior at the lowest level we can to see if that behavior changes, and then if it doesn't change, you ratchet up. And that's the progressive discipline model that I think we're trying to follow in this too.
Can I ask a question on this? Does this deal with, Keith mentioned some of the equity issues, like some of that Megan Bushnell's presentation that she put together that we gave to all the schools, what was that called?
Well, it
You know,
was
like
anti-harassment.
Anti-harassment, does that fall under safe schools
Yes.
as well? And is that something that, I'm just wondering how that's handled now at the schools? Because I know we did that presentation for everything, and my kids came home and said it was worse after they had that, like, people started doing that. I was like, they said, we're giving them ideas, and I was like, that's not the point, you know, so as a parent, I'm like, ah, but.
I think from what I heard, there was a little bit of an uptick, and I think probably research would show that happens in a lot of safety type of, you know, buckle up, you know, drive 55, save lives, all those types of things. But I think in general, now we do have more of a way to talk to the students and say, hey, this is something that you've been told that you should not and cannot do, or else you'll be put into the.
So now they have this, like, this is the
Yes.
baseline, now you understand,
Yep.
this is explicit, we know what this is, and that falls under this safe schools,
ahead,
thing like that, is that right?
Well, yeah, so I was going to say, it's not a one and done shot, but it is a focus that we're starting, and it has to start somewhere. And because we haven't been explicit in any of all the years I've been around, policies either, I think it has to start somewhere, but it's not going to end there. It's going to keep, you know, we're going to keep educating. They see so many things that are maybe humorous in their social media outlets that we have to kind of bring back, this is what's appropriate and what's not. So I think that's great. I want to maybe mention, Nancy, your comment. You know, with this idea that this House bill that, hey, we can't do anything. And I'm glad Heidi Jo brought this up too, because, you know, what juvenile court was telling us is you can do things. And they're not going in there to put them into jail. They're going in there to restore them as well. But there are Class B misdemeanors or Class A misdemeanors, or obviously any felonies. If they hit that level, they are going to be referred to the police or to the court. If it's a Class C, there is no referring. So this chart kind of talks about what is a C, what is a B, what is an A, and there are things we can do and we need to do, but then there are things we can't do, and we got to keep finding ways to support parents, support kids, change behavior, and so we're progressing, so.
Else I wanted to say, when I was teaching at Utah State, we did this whole big program. I was working with the married students up there and child car seats and getting the right car seat and getting all the fit. And we had this huge program. And suddenly it turned out that afterwards, people were reporting all these violations and problems. And I was just saying, we did so much. How did this happen? And they said it's an awareness, and suddenly people are aware of things that aren't happening and that need to happen. So don't take it too to heart that because the presentation was done and kids, it's suddenly kids are saying, oh, that's something that shouldn't happen, and it is. And so that's what my administrator at USU said, calm down, it's okay. Just there's more awareness, you're doing fine, keep going.
I don't know if you've ever bought a new car, and all of a sudden everybody else is driving that car.
Yeah.
So as soon as you start hearing something, and you're like, whoa, and you just become a little more aware of it, it may feel like, but it probably was happening all along, but probably weren't aware of it because we weren't educated about it. So we hope to continue to improve in that area.
Alyssa, were you, I hate to ask, in case maybe you were sick that day or whatever, but do you remember being presented with that anti-harassment? Would you give your feedback of what the feeling in the classroom was and how you took it?
I was actually about to talk about this. Oh, that was really good timing. Okay, so with the video, I've gotten like a lot of feedback from it from both schools, and it was really good. Like I love the way Megan did it and everything. But the other feedback I got from it was it just wasn't interactive. Like she was just reading the slides, and like the slides were amazing and everything. But I feel like the kids at that time, we were just thrown into like, we had our second period, and then we were thrown into like this 20, 30-ish minute period where we were just watching the video. And I think for people to actually understand, specifically like high schoolers, because we're all getting antsy in our classes, like we're sitting there for so long. I think a little bit more interaction between the students, like actually like face-to-face conversations explaining why we shouldn't do this or what's wrong with it and explaining different ways to kind of go around it. I think that would be really beneficial too, to avoid any of these problems happening.
You know, Megan actually made that presentation as just a PowerPoint. And then we had the discussion, how should we present this to the students? And our concern was that if we just had the teachers present the PowerPoint, I just need to be quite upfront and honest, how all the teachers would respond. There might be teachers that maybe snickered at it a little bit and said, oh, this isn't a big deal. And so we had Megan do that, and I can see your point that it left out that interactive. So that's something we'll take into account as I think we'll do this every year and take that into account and try to, but thank you for that input.
No, she did really good,
know.
and like, I understand like the way that she was delivering it. I just think sometimes like, with high schoolers, they're like, that was just so boring, just watching a movie. And I was like, you guys, it's actually informational.
Yeah. Well, and I think we probably rushed it, and if we had a chance to talk to all of our teachers and be very explicit about how to respond to certain things and make sure that they didn't make light of it in any way, because, with 600 teachers, there could be at least 300 or 400 different opinions on that. And some people say, oh, this isn't that big of a deal, but I have to show it to you. But it is a big deal, and that's kind of the concern. And so, but I think we'll take that into consideration. So thank you.
Yeah, Alyssa, I know Megan is really great to work with, and I think, she was brand new to her job, and she's just learning too, but I think she could easily do that this next year, bring students in to help her, and that would be a really positive thing. And I think she'd be more than willing to do something like that, because she's great at those things. So, okay, thanks, Alyssa. Thank you. Any other comments on that? Okay, super. So we'll go on to our policy review. We have a number of policies on first reading. Are there any questions on any of them, or any comments?
I just found one typo, which I know that's not important. But on the grades one, I don't know if it's a typo, but it says all grades with percentages within in, like it's kind of a double.
And we talked about that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. It's policy 4103. Just the one and the Look at me, I'm proud of myself for reading all these this time. We haven't had policies for a while, I was like, oh, there's policies, so. Anyhow, but I just saw that and I was like, what does that mean? And then I realized, I don't think that's what it should say. So anyhow.
Keith, I'm not going to be here in the morning. Would you take the responsibility to talk to Marcy? Thank you.
It's in the red, B1 or something.
Yeah, we caught that, and for whatever reason.
Marcy usually corrects it right there.
I feel good about catching.
Thank you, Keith.
I have a couple of questions.
Okay?
Policy 1072, board meeting notice requirements. On page 3, it just, page 3, number 3 at the top. It just says, post a copy of the proposed budget on the website. I think we might want to put which website, the district website, or
Okay.
just a little bit more specific?
I'm pretty sure. They probably were supposed to cut out internet website.
That's what I thought.
Yep,
And then down on policy 6050, community use of schools, we get there. Last one, page 2, G1, where it talks about, it took out the word intoxicating drinks. So I guess it's supposed to read tobacco, drinks, and boisterous conduct. Drinks is kind of vague.
Okay, that is, yeah.
That's why I don't know what.
Yeah, I think, Fresca's getting a little boisterous.
It depends how new the carpet is, too.
I was gonna say, I read that as they just don't want drinks, like any, I was thinking like soda or anything like that, anything but water, because I've been to a facility recently, they're like, only water, you can't have anything.
Yeah, and maybe that's what it
That
is.
was my
That's why I
thinking when I
brought
read
it
it,
up.
Yeah.
But I know,
I got to believe where it says boisterous.
I don't know. I just thought you might want to
Tell me what
specify.
policy that is again.
6050, community use of school facilities.
Okay.
Page 2, G1.
I think we're going with sticky on drinks on that one. I think that was.
Is that what it was?
Well, I don't know if this is specific, but we just had our class reunion at the high school, and, I mean, it's nice to be able to have more than just water on the gym floor, so. I don't know what you were going for, but it's kind of vague there.
Tell me,
I have a-
sorry, tell me the line again. I'm sorry, Brian, I'm trying to take G1?
Page 2, G1.
Okay. Okay. Try to define that where it says just drinks.
Policy 1070 D2, does anyone else think that's awkward wording? The board does not by allowing? There are better, for you English teachers out there, a better way to state that. 1070 D, public comment to the board.
I'm not in.
1070 D as in
Dog?
David, yeah, dog. 2.
It
Board
can be
does
said
not-
by allowing public comment, the board does not.
That would be better, yeah.
The board does not by.
Just
It-
seems
it is-
very awkward
It is,
verbiage.
yeah.
I mean, just the
By allowing public comment, the board does not
endorse. There you go. I like that better.
Okay.
Then on 5272. Get to it. 50, is there a 5272?
That one was 1072.
Yeah, 5272, we use a lot of verbiage parent. Wouldn't we want to change that to legal guardian? Aren't there a lot of situations?
Rule has gone back to parent, and parent
So if there
implies
is no parent, if there's, parent implies,
all
if it's
of
a
the,
grandparent?
all of the,
Implies
all of the
legal guardian.
legal, who
Okay.
is in charge of that,
All right,
yeah.
okay.
I know there was a time where you have to say
Parent or.
parent or
yeah, if it's a
guardian
grandparent or
and now they've
adopted.
kind of swung right back. If parent implies all of those individuals that would be directly in charge of
A
that.
parent could be a grandparent or adoptive parent or any of that.
It could
Okay.
be,
All right.
yeah.
Very good. And then on 6050, as I read through the changes and updates, I'm still not real clear on what, how we would deal with the situation. For example, Foothill, can the neighbors use the grass field, the basketball hoop? Can they go
Brian,
play on that?
that's our board discussion on the next.
Oh, that's not part of this?
That's the
We
next.
haven't made that correction.
Okay, I
So we're
thought
gonna
this was
discuss
to
that.
this,
That's the very
okay.
next thing.
All right,
This
I'll,
is something that the state came and we haven't really cleaned that up yet.
all right, gotcha. So we'll hold off on that.
So any more questions on the policies?
I'll second.
Okay, Nancy Kennedy has made the motion. Brian Smith, the second. All in favor say yes. Yes. Any opposed? Okay. Policies pass on first reading. Now we go to the board discussion item, and that's where it's policy 2160 and 6018 on buildings and grounds rental and supervision, permit and use agreement, and community use of school facilities. And we're going to have a discussion on those policies.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Brian, go for it, because that was the main reason that this is for discussion. Can I just a couple things before we start, though? So I have had a couple conversations with some principals and some head custodians, just kind of get their feel on this. A couple things of their concern. So they'll let certain individuals come in and practice or use the facility, and then they'll come back in the next day and something will be broken. And they won't take responsibility for it. They didn't do it, is basically what they receive as a response for that. The cages over clocks will be broken, or clocks will be broken, or lights will be broken, or a bleacher will be broken, or something will have a hole in it, and nobody will take responsibility for it. They're also having a difficult time finding people that are willing to supervise the buildings. You know, a custodian puts in the X number of hours, and then they're asked to come in on a Thursday night or a Friday night or even on a Saturday to supervise the building, and they're having a hard time finding people that are willing to fill those roles. Part of it is, according to a high school principal, they get abused, verbally abused when they tell people that they can't do something, or that's not allowed in here, or can you watch your kids because they're not allowed in this part of the building? You didn't rent this part. These are classrooms. We don't want your kids in the classroom. They get attacked by the public whenever they try to supervise the facility, and they just don't want to deal with it. It's too much headache for them. They say that we don't get paid enough. And the other thing, too, that we haven't done is, and this came about because the city was renting the field there at the middle school because they used to play all their football games, Pee Wee football games down at Watkins, but it's too small now. In talking to the principal and the secretary there, they've had big organizations use their facilities, and we've never charged them for the amount of paper towel and toilet paper they go through. And they said, if you have Pee Wee football games all day on a Saturday, those toilet paper rolls will be completely gone, and we've never charged for those. So those are a couple of things that they talked about with supplies, just the verbal abuse that they are receiving from the public that are using them, and then just not being able to find the resources, the personnel to monitor the building. So that's just the feedback that I've gotten in research for this.
Very true.
So I know during COVID, we wanted to hand out lunches at the city park, and we were told by the rec people that we would have to pay full rental price for the park to hand out lunches for an hour, half an hour. And they weren't willing to give us the same $10 deal we're giving now. And I know these are public built facilities, but if you've ever sat and watched junior jazz on a Saturday, when everyone's little kids are just screaming through everything, it's awful, quite frankly, and I got little kids, part of the problem.
So it's a dilemma, and I think we need to, try to make it happen, but it's really a concern. And then I'll say this, Karen brought up the tennis courts last month. I was, or maybe it was at the work session, I can't remember which, but I went down to St. George. I have a son that lives in St. George, and his son, my grandson, was playing freshman football. So I went to two different schools for two different games. So I think this one was Crimson Cliffs. And as you pulled into Crimson Cliffs High School, their tennis courts were right out in front. And I pulled in to watch an evening game, I believe it was 5:30, and I actually noticed coming out. And there were people, and it looked like adults playing tennis on their tennis courts. And I think, as I thought about it, I thought, well, that's really good public relations, but it was kind of in front. And where our location of both Box Elder High and Bear River High are kind of, and so I think that's a concern, and we've had poor facilities for so long now. We have nice facilities. I think all of our leaders really are very protective of things, and I appreciate that. But then it leads us to this discussion where our taxpayers, the people who pay for it, want to be able to use it. So I think somewhere, and it might be that we, I don't know, look on both ends of the district and find somebody that could be the overseer. It's going to cost money, but maybe charge a little bit more, or it's just like with the Bear Center. I think when the Bear Center was proposed, it was proposed that it would be open at 6 o'clock in the morning. And I believe at the time, I'm not sure what's happening now, I should have checked, but Van Park, I know, from the very beginning, was there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and people would come in and walk the track, and maybe even jog a little bit, all the way through the winter. And I don't know what fund paid him, we'd have to find out, because certainly, he's the AD, but he's also there until, he was, like Clay is now, also there until 10 o'clock at night for ball games, so she wouldn't ask him just for his AD stipend to be there from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. And so I'm assuming he got paid something. So I think it's something we need to look at, because I think Dave is very, very correct. And right now, we're also having a discussion about people with comp hours and paying overtime, because anything over, that 40 hours, we've done a lot of comp time, but if it's over 40 hours, you give them an hour and a half for 1 hour, which ends up, and we've had people abuse that, so we end up with somebody getting to leave for a week when we need them here to either be a custodian or be a secretary or be a teacher. And then if we pay them out, right now, we're looking at paying everybody out and then trying to get a better control on that. And so that becomes another issue. A custodian who we need for 40 hours to clean, then all of a sudden he's there for 3 or 4 hours getting that, then he's not there on Friday. So it is really complicated, but I concur 100% that we need to try to find a way to give our taxpayers access to these buildings, because in the long run, that helps with public relations, which we know we have something coming up that we really need all the public.
And it's not just the building, but even just the grassy field, or the playground equipment. If neighbor families can come over and play on the playground equipment, or do you lock it up so tight with fences and that nobody can get in? That doesn't seem to compute.
Liability.
I know how in school, when we still owned it, we did not, this is how play on the equipment because of liability. Because we didn't have anybody in the building, we just need to watch out. And we said they could not play there because of liability.
That's very true, and I think that liability, and that's, I think even Jason's example of the unfortunate death that occurred is probably a 99.9% chance of that happening. But that 0.01% just can be devastating to a budget. And so I think I'd like to look at it more, Brian, and maybe we'll get with Dave and talk to some other districts and see what they're doing to handle it. Because as I said, there were some adults, and it's funny, I'm down St. George enjoying my grandkids and the wonderful weather, and I look over and there's tennis. So all of a sudden, my mind goes right back to this discussion. So it's really interesting how that plays out. So we'll look at it some more, and maybe I get a focus group with our principals, because I know they're the ADs, and look at that. So
So,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask, like, how often are our buildings being rented or used currently? I mean, is there a high demand for it currently?
Well, I think Box Elder Middle School gets used a ton,
Yeah.
that facility. I do know that, it just so happens that I have a sixth grade grandson. You guys have all met him, but he's part of what is called Triple Threat, which is a basketball organization in our community, and I kind of assistant coach, I kind of go when the head coach can't come, who's a college student, and it's over at Lakeview. And so I went over there at 4:15, talked to some custodians that went in, how you doing? We practiced for an hour and left. And I don't have a clue what happened. How it got paid for, I didn't ask, and then another day we went down to a private, maybe, I believe it's Chris Reeder. Keith, is that the correct term? Brett. And we used his, it was his facility, but this Triple Threat had rented it for that particular time. So I need to check in to see how that's being rented, and so it's.
And I guess that's my question is like, is it required when they rent that we have to have a supervision there? And is that usually a custodian, or is it just anybody they can find?
It's pretty much anybody in that school, it could be a para, it could be a teacher parent, it could be a custodian. And
So I guess I would speak to that. If, let's just say, Box Elder Middle School's practice field to the north, and they did not want anything inside. The only reason why they would maybe rent, because it's open, right? People can walk on. They at least get on the schedule so they can guarantee that no one else, they could kick someone else off if they showed up. But if they don't need inside the building, they may not have a quote-unquote supervisor, because they're not going to they're going to come in, use the bathrooms where vandalism potentially could be a problem. Any indoor, there's got to be somebody. It could be any school employee. It could be, but someone has to be there to kind of ensure that the halls aren't running down, the halls you're not supposed to run down, that, drinking fountains, bathrooms, doors aren't. And oftentimes parents are doing multiple things in there and trying to watch child A play while child B is waiting for their game, and it's so those things do happen. So you have to have somebody inside of it. I think inside outside could be a really big distinction. And what is the activity? How many people are going to come? I mean, if it's a mom or a dad and a handful of kids, that's a little different than we're having leagues, we have officials, there's a different type of risk, I think.
How does junior jazz work at the middle school?
So they play, we have a custodian. Yep. Yeah, so they just have different people that will come in, and they're in charge. It's a long day. And it's rented every night by the city, except for Friday nights and occasionally Friday nights. But if there's a night that the middle school gym's open, it's Friday night. But Monday through Thursday and Saturday, not going to happen. Can't get in.
So does what we charge in rent cover the cost of what we're paying?
$10 an hour?
That's what I'm saying. I mean, if we just talk about simple math, I think we need to do.
Yeah, I think you're right, Karen.
I'm just making the point we all know.
Yeah, I mean, just lights, let alone heat. Corey, you could speak to this. I don't think $10 an hour. And it's not like per court and then the supervision. They do have to pay the supervision fee plus the $10 an hour. So the rental is 10, and they have to pay, I want to say 35, but I might be a little out of the loop, for that person's hourly rate.
I would think that if someone supervising gets, I can't remember the words you used, Dave, but like somebody gives that person a hard time, I think their privileges should be revoked. That should just be a one and done. Like, I'm sorry, you're not.
Well, it often is not necessarily the person renting as it is people coming to compete, and then, that's the group. And so you're like, I want you out. Well, I mean, they never see them again. But I mean, I agree with you, but sometimes that's not as easy.
Julie, to get back to your question, being a former principal, some schools rent more than other schools, depending. But like I remember when I was out to Century, well, Century is like the middle of the little community of Bear River City. And everybody who has a family reunion, Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas, wanted to rent the school, and thank heavens for Betty Dallin. She was such a sweetheart. She would always say, "Wait, I'll come watch him, don't worry." And she would. Oh, really, literally, Betty would do about anything. I know. Well, I think Thanksgiving dinner was her family, so that probably helped. But anyway, so it depends on the community, because that's kind of the center of Bear River City. They have the church or they have the school. So.
Well, and my daughter before the new courts, and he was so excited because we got vignettes of the courts, and he was so tickled. And like the very next day, someone had cut out the size of like the tailgate of a truck, the net out of had cut out the net, and walked away with our brand new net.
I know.
Took the net out. It's like, what kind of lovely people do we have?
She checked herself.
Because they're not, but they were not well guarded. And somebody came in and whacked out some, I happened to get the exact back of their truck. This is fine.
You could not keep your garbage in the back pickup. That's probably what it was.
So,
I think
So-
just looking at all the things we brought up, we just need to make sure that it's not subjective, because I think that will help, that would get us in trouble, and then also to look at the liability and making sure that we at least cover the cost so it doesn't come down on the taxpayers.
One of the things I will do is call Heidi Alder and, just talk about, like Foothills, I think the prime example, where we've had a lot of vandalism there, and we're kind of holding on to Foothill right now just to try to see how things work out. That's a school that could be worked on, and if we needed to do some masonry reinforcement, Corey, am I using the right term? That, for a reasonable amount, could be brought on board, depending on what happens in the next few years, without saying too much. And, but so at the same time, it's just this awesome, and you can see the playground, the big grassy field, and I can see that it would help us if we let people use the facilities, because as we go forward, we want to be supported in some of our endeavors by these same people. Say, well, why would I support you in the future in what you're trying to do if you won't let us use it? So it's kind of a two-edged sword, really. So I think Heidi, especially that particular school, talking to her about liability and seeing what we can do, so. Yes. Exactly.
exactly.
And if there's a way we can communicate to the community, especially the neighborhood around there, if we're having those kind of issues, hey, we're having these issues, keep an eye out. Either way we can
Neighborhood
communicate
watch
that.
type
Yeah.
thing, yeah. Okay. We'll work on that some more. I know we've talked this thing to death, and it's just one of those that just not a definitive answer, so, but we will keep working.
Okay, everyone okay with that? Okay. Okay, now we're going to the Board of Education Handbook Review. I've given everyone the schedule on that, and Connie and I are going to start this month. And remember, it doesn't have to be a long thing, maybe 3 to 5 minutes or whatever works best for you. It's up to you each month, whoever does it. I was assigned page 2, actually, and it's just kind of basically an introduction. I don't know those that were on the board when I became a board member. Those that are newer don't know this, but we had. Did you do anything this weekend?
No, nothing.
Okay. Okay. Okay, that's good, we're good. We needed that, we needed to be woke up. Okay, about 8 years ago, we had the USBA leadership come up. We had taken a survey and everything, and we wanted to know what we could do better as a board. And Richard Stoll, and I remember Christy Sweat was president at that time, and they came up with the other leadership, and they had looked over everything we had sent in, and they decided the number one thing we needed was to have a board handbook, because a lot of districts have a board handbook, but we did not. And a board handbook is simply something that you refer back to that has all of your policies and everything, guidelines that you need to follow to be the best board you can possibly be. So at that time, Ron Tolman was superintendent, and I don't know how I got selected, I can't remember, but anyway, did I volunteer? I can't even remember. But anyway, I was new then, so I was willing to do about anything, I guess. Anyway, but Ron and I got together, and Richard Stoll sent us some wonderful examples from other school districts. I remember we had Salt Lake and Davis and Weber and a whole bunch of others. And he says it's okay to kind of steal from other districts. So we kind of picked some things that we really liked and kind of adapted them to Box Elder. We had to do some original things like PLCs and stuff that not all districts do. But anyway, we compiled it together, and Richard, Christy, everybody thought it was great. And in fact, I was really happy because when Superintendent Carlson came, we did a presentation once, remember, on our handbook. So that was really fun at one of the new board member orientations. We did a presentation.
We had several school districts call up and say, hey, would you share that?
Exactly, yeah. And so they copied from ours, so which is okay. But anyway, so that's how it all came about. Just a couple things to go over on my page here. It says the powers and mandatory duties of the Board of Education are defined in the Utah Code and State Board of Education rule. So why we don't have a hard copy anymore, and it's always on our board meeting every week, is every month, is that the Utah Code is there, and Marcy updates it, and any board policy is updated. Because we had the book, she had to keep printing the books, and it got to be a real hassle. So we decided just to put it on the agenda every month. So everything is updated when there's a new Utah Code or anything's added, she will update that, so we are current. So that's why that is that way. Anyway, just the principles of board leadership, it's just the last thing I want to go over on my page. It says, remembering 3 important principles of board leadership will help keep the Box Elder School District Board of Education focused on the most important responsibilities. And these are the 3 most important responsibilities. The board delegates authority. The board delegates authority to the superintendent to manage the district and provide leadership for the staff. Such authority is communicated through written policies that designate board ends and define operating limits. So that means our responsibility is to hire the superintendent and the business administrator, and then it's their responsibility to go ahead and to hire administrators and teachers and classified, and they hire all the people to do that. And that's where we don't get involved in that. That's their job to do that. Number 2, the board monitors performance. The board constantly monitors progress toward district goals and compliance with written board policies. And that's what we do every month when we have our presentations through testing or whatever the case may be. We monitor that to make sure that things are working well. When we have our principal presentations at the first of each board meeting and those type of things. And then we go over our policies to make sure that they're updated and we're doing the right thing there. And then number 3, the board takes responsibility for itself. The board collectively and individually takes full responsibility for board activity and behavior. Board deliberations and actions are limited to board work, not staff work. So I think the very important thing here is that we have to remember our place in the board, that we are board members and we do policy and we hire the superintendent, business administrator, and we make sure things are running properly, but we don't overstep the line and tell the superintendent, you need to hire this person or do this or do that. That's his job. We can certainly ask him questions about it and all of that, but there is a fine line there that we have to make sure that we do not cross. So that's my page. Okay? Okay, Connie. Next
Okay,
page.
my page was making school board decisions. We have a state and federal laws, we have financial constraints and local expectations that govern the school district. The decisions by the Board of Education sets the environment in which the district will either flourish or flounder. The school board has four different categories of decisions. The first one is policy decisions. And of course, we know that these are the decisions that we spend the most time on as members of the Board of Education is policy decisions. Our responsibility is about making sure that the policy development, monitoring, and review take place. And we've seen that tonight. The second type of decision that we're involved with is problem-solving decisions. The Board of Education also responds to crises or opportunities that cannot be solved by the superintendent. For example, how do we proceed when enrollments are increasing or declining? That's a school district issue. We play a big part in whether we build schools or we close schools, and that would be a decision by the Box Elder Board of Education. Thirdly, managerial decisions. Most of these decisions are delegated to the administrative team, the superintendent and the administrators that work closely with him. Where there is good communication between the board and the superintendent, these decisions can be completed through approval of consent agendas. This is really important, and this is something that I totally believe in. Those boards that emphasize policy development will need to make fewer decisions in response to routine problems. This is why we review policy often. So as we set policy, it gives the superintendent and the administrative team permissions to proceed. And then there's personnel decisions. Most school boards delegate personnel matters to the superintendent or the administrative team, who uses policies to set standards for hiring, evaluating compensation, discipline, and dismissals. So that's kind of what we believe in our handbook states in regards to making school board decisions, those four type of categories. And then I was asked to go over holding closed meetings. First of all, a quorum needs to be present. Secondly, in an open meeting, there is notice given that a closed meeting will take place. The purpose of the session must be stated. We have to tell the public why we're going into closed session, and 2/3 of the board members must vote to go into closed session. Voting must be taken by roll call. So we state our names and we vote yay or nay, whether we're going to go in or not. A closed session minutes must contain the reason for the session, the location, and the vote by name of those attending. There are 7 purposes for which a closed session may be required. And we've all looked at those 7 reasons many times. But a recording and written minutes must be kept of all closed meetings unless the purpose of the closed session is for the discussion of the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual. In this case, that closed session would not be recorded or written. Any recordings that we have, though, with the other 6 purposes need to be complete and unedited. The recording shall state the date, the time, the place of the meeting, and the names of those present. And the other thing I thought was really interesting that our policy states, or our handbook states, is a sworn statement must be signed by the presiding member of the board that the sole purpose of a closed sessions are to discuss the particular purpose as indicated. So as we're in a closed session, if you can just picture yourself there, I can picture myself there. We're in a closed session, and whatever the purpose is that we've indicated, we can't leave that topic. We need to stay on that topic and that topic only. And there are times when we might have a tendency to want to go into some other point of discussion, but we are not permitted to do so. And so Wade Hyde, who may be our presiding member of the board, would need to remind us that isn't a part of why we're in closed session right now. So I thought that was kind of interesting, so that's what I would leave you with this evening as far as holding closed meetings, that this is very, very serious and we need to follow this kind of protocol.
Okay, Thank you, Connie. Are there any questions, either one of us? We're all good? Okay, and Richard, talking to Richard, he says that we should go over the board handbook probably at least once a year, just to kind of, brush up and make sure we're doing everything we should, so. Anyway, and it shouldn't take too long. We should have this done in just a few months. Next month will be, let me see, Nancy and Tiffany, right? Okay. Thank you all. Thank you. Okay, now we go on to our consent items.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent items this evening.
Okay, Connie Archibald has made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Karen Cronin made the second. All in favor say yes.
Yes?
Yes? Any opposed? Okay, we have approved our consent items. Any suggestions for future board meetings we don't already have on the list?
Do we need to put on the transportation issue, like they're going to come back with that?
That's a good idea. We should probably do
Just
that.
to-
It'll be November or December.
November, December, yeah.
And also, I wonder if we shouldn't put the two policies that we discussed about rentals.
Yeah, I've got that down, so.
So in the next little while, whenever you get those taken care of.
So we usually do our meeting with the legislators in December?
January, isn't it?
No, it's usually December, because in
That's right.
the meeting with the legislators.
Yes, we're.
So I was just going to say we might want to add that there.
Okay, to December's.
Okay.
And we'll get those, I've already talked to him personally, but I've got the official information.
Okay, good. Any other items? Okay, so now we need to, let's go over the upcoming events of the USBA conference on January 4th through 6th. And also, remember in our November, our pre-meeting, we're going to discuss the things we discussed at our work session this month. So be aware of that. We will not have principal presentations at that time. Also, so we need to, how should we do this?
Wade, could I interrupt you just
You
one
bet,
second?
absolutely.
At your stations, there was the Box Elder School District disclosure statement of possible conflict of interest. And if you wouldn't mind, if you have, all you have to do is, if you don't have a conflict of interest, which I think most of you do, if you wouldn't mind just putting have not and then filling out the bottom. Marcy told me to make sure I get that, so I just, thank you for. So thank you.
Do you need a motion to go into closed session?
Yeah.
Okay.
I make a motion that we go into closed session to discuss purchase, exchange, or lease of real property.
I second.
Okay, Karen Cronin has made the motion to go into closed session, and who did the second? Danielle? Danielle Wright did the second. All in favor, say yes. Yes. Any opposed? Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
that's right, we have to do roll call vote. You're right, absolutely. Thank you, Karen, for keeping me on track, so, okay. Wade Hyde, yes.
Connie Archibald, yes.
Danielle Wright, yes.
Julie Taylor, yes.
Okay. Thank you all, so we will go into closed
I
session.
thought it
And
would probably
then
easier, well,
we will
Robert
close
cleans
our,
up to go in that corner room.
yeah, and
That's
then we'll
okay.
close our, we can close our board meeting in there, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so will we go in the room that we were in at the first?
Yes.
Okay?
Alyssa, you get to go home. Thank you.